Hey, welcome back to Kickin' and Streamin'. It's me, Tammy. Hope everyone's staying safe and sane in this quarantine COVID-19 time. I am back with a review for a show that just dropped on Amazon Prime called Upload. Now, this show was created by Greg Daniels. He did Parks and Rec, adapted The Office for American audiences, kind of an icon in, you know, comedy television. And so that's what I'm talking about today. Upload. So this is an interesting show. It stars Robbie Amell as Nathan Brown and Andy Allo as Nora Anthony. It's got some other interesting cast members, and it's only 10 episodes long, so it makes it really easy to binge watch this show. I started and then just was like, I watched that first episode and then I was like, I'm way more intrigued than I was expecting, and then I just couldn't stop, as all good television should do. So I don't know about you. I've been kind of struggling with my brain, trying to watch things that were new, but it was kind of this because of how insanity was in this world. I kind of needed something that was familiar. And finally, it was as things feel well, I don't, who knows what things are, but I was starting to feel a little better. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to watch something I've never seen before. And I had seen the trailer and I was intrigued because it's in the age of technology. And yes, while I love movies and film and television, I also work in technology. I'm an IT trainer. I have, done tech support off and on for years. And I use technology every day. And so this one was really intriguing to me. And there's a lot of questions that this show asks. And, I actually made a list of them trying to kind of, boil it down, but there's a lot of commentary in this show. So quick overview. Robbie Mill's character, Nathan Brown, has just died in real life, but his consciousness has been uploaded to heaven, the cloud. So, and Andy Allo's character, Nora, is his angel. And she is alive in real life, IRL, and is helping him transition from being alive in person to being an upload. And so that's where we start. And there's a lot of questions that are asked, and there's some commentary that's happening, on the surface level. It's, what do you do when you die? Where do you go? So that's kind of that, that level, that base level. But there's some commentary on, Nathan, the character, he is dating a very rich woman, but he himself is not rich. But where he goes, his girlfriend uploaded him to Lakeview, which is kind of the end-all be-all Beverly Hills of the afterlife, of the cloud afterlife. And so he's in this really swank place, and it's kind of an interesting question. So there's this commentary about the haves and the have-not, and how technology affects both of those groups. So it's certainly something that's happening and relevant right now with, millions of people who have just lost their jobs. And now that divide is even bigger, the haves and the have-nots, and not very many people in between. So that's a really interesting commentary, because then he goes, in Lakeview, he has unlimited data, and he goes to visit the 2Gs, the 2 gigs, and they only have 2 gigs of that they can do a month, because it's expensive to live in the afterlife, and there's all kinds of in-app purchases, and so there's this really, not only do you see it in the afterlife, seeing the haves and have nots. You see it in the real life too, because it costs a lot of money for people to be uploaded. And so that's kind of this undercurrent of what is kind of happening in the society. So that's a really intriguing question. Another one is the are we more than just the sum of our parts and our memories? And kind of what happens to us when we die. And so when Nathan was uploaded, some of his memories were damaged and he was not able to remember parts of who he was. And so that kind of asks that question of like, what happens to us when we move on? And are we more than just the memories, and it kind of makes you think about what happens if someone were to lose their memories, and what does that mean for who you are, as a human being. And really an intriguing question about humanity. Another one of those questions that gets asked is like, do we have a soul? And what's the difference between uploaded, our consciousness, and our soul, what makes us human and alive? And so that's an interesting question, because it then kind of drops down to that base question is, what does it mean to be alive and what does it mean to be dead in an age of technology? And how do we as a society deal with death? Now, this is a really intriguing question to me, because as I'm getting older, I am actually thinking a lot more about my mortality, something that I never thought of before. And, questioning my faith versus, my fears. And just, it's like, is this all that there is? Or is there something beyond this? And so it was a really interesting question. And it was a really intriguing question to me. I've lost people that are close to me. My brother passed away. It's been a long time, going on almost 30 years. So there's that. But then my dad died a few years ago. And so there's me now. It's like, I want to see that person again. And, and hope that when I go on and leave this life, that I'll be able to see them again. But then there's that fear that this is all there is, and I'm never going to be able to see them again. So I've been thinking a lot about that. And this, the show kind of asked those questions, and it was really interesting, really thought-provoking for me. And the other thing is, how do we let go of the people who we have lost? And can we, if we have access to them all the time, how do we ever move on and grieve their loss? It was a really interesting question. And one of the characters' storylines was a little boy who had been uploaded, and when he had been uploaded, he was 11 or 12 maybe, but he'd been at Lakeview for years now. And he contacted his mom on a regular basis, but she never let him upgrade and become a teenager, while he could see his brother, who had not passed away, grow up and go on dates, get facial hair, and all of those things that we associate with growing up. But his mom kind of kept him safe as a 12-year-old, but his consciousness had grown up. And so that was a really, interesting question of, it was almost like the mom couldn't let go. And I completely can understand that. She was able to contact him on a regular basis. And so she was still her son at age 12 when he died. And so really an intriguing, that storyline was interesting. But then there was the story of Nora, whose dad was sick and died, and he was dying, and her mom had already passed away and had not uploaded. And um she works for Horizon, which is they manage Lakeview. And so she's the angel for Nathan, but she's also, so she's alive, but you know, she's a believer in that afterlife, and she wants her dad to be able to go and upload, and he wants to allow himself to pass away so that he can go see her mom. And it's that question of, is there life after life? And it was a really intriguing thing to me, and I'm still processing that. And I really liked those conversations that it forces you to have with yourself. And it also brought up another issue of making sure that you have stated your views on how you want to be treated in the afterlife. Those directives and things that the doctors are always telling you that you should have. And as I'm getting older, I'm thinking about those more. When I was way younger, I never did. And now, so it's I'm watching this at a really interesting time in my life. Like, I know where my mom's will is, but I don't have one, and I have kids, and now I have a grandbaby. And so what if something were to happen to me, what would my kids do? And how do I want my remains to be handled and taken care of? And so the importance of, that last will and directive, so that you have control of your life and your death. So anyway, so there's some really interesting, intriguing questions that I got out of Upload. And there was actually more substance than I thought. There was also a mystery that was happening with Nathan's memories and understanding what really happened to him. I'm not going to talk about that at all, because I don't know what happened. And it's like, oh my gosh, it left cliffhangers suck. But I found out that it has been renewed for a second season. So yay, I get to find out what happens. So that brings me to my final thoughts about, well, not necessarily Upload itself, but the nature of how television stories are now being created, and why this is the kind of stories that I want to create. Not necessarily Upload, but it's more than just a movie. A movie is an hour to 2 hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours, and you're just with these characters for that amount of time. An American television series is 22 to 24 episodes. But now we have this new medium with streaming services, and over the course of a season, like if you're watching like NBC or something like that, we're waiting every week for that next installation. And while they're producing it while the season is still going. Netflix and Amazon Prime, and some of those shows that are like when they're launching and dropping all of the episodes all at once, that is it's a different kind of television. And because of that, the story arcs are way more intriguing. Now, like if you think about like a TV show like Law and Order, it's a movie of the week, and yes, you're understanding all of those characters, but it's a murder of the week, an assault of the week, whatever. And that's what the driving force is. It's called a procedural. Everything resets back to one the next time. There's character growth, but that's not the driving storytelling force. Something like this, which is a serialized television, each episode is different, and it's forcing you to actually pay attention to each individual episode, because it's not just a single show that has an arc, it's a single series arc, and it's telling the whole story, and it's breaking it up into individual things, and it's more than just a movie. It's, but at the same time, these shows are 6, 10, 12 episodes, and it's more dense storytelling. And I really like that as a creator, because sometimes I think that's one of the things that is a problem with like storytelling that's on like NBC. Not that there's bad stories, but, and I'm not bashing NBC, don't think that, but just that narrative, each week in the writer's room, the writers are breaking the story, and they're probably breaking for 2 or 3 episodes at a time, trying to kind of create this overall arc, but the stories are being written every week, and then they're shooting, and it's a little bit different process. Whereas, at least my understanding, not saying this, but at least my understanding is all of the scripts are written and then they're shot all at once, and then they're released all at once, and it's a different type of storytelling that I think is actually really effective and creates a stronger story arc overall, compared to, I've been watching Bones, and so some episodes are really good, and it's not a smooth trajectory across. I also, those procedurals are great because sometimes you just need something safe. That when the story ends, it's going to get reset back to 1, and we know our characters are going to be okay. But something like Upload, we're learning more each time. It's not a movie or a show of the week. It's a monster of the week. It's building and building and building, and we learn more each time. And I think that is the way that the media is changing, and I really like how that's happening. And so I've added a whole bunch of things to my Amazon Prime and to Netflix, shows that I'm finally ready to actually start watching again. So Upload is a very intriguing show. I really liked it a lot, and I would highly recommend it. Be prepared for some deep thoughts, though, because it's a little bit, there's more than meets the eye there, and I think it's definitely worth a watch. Again, it's only 10 episodes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes each. Makes it really easy to get through in just a single night, and I didn't even have to stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was only I was done by 1. So, so I hope everyone's staying safe and sane during this quarantine, and whatever it is you're watching, whether you're from the comfort of your couch or the comfort of your bed, you're enjoying what it is you're watching. I hope to see you soon when we get to go back and watch things in the gloriousness of the movie theater. But until then, stay safe and sane, and I will see you again here soon.